with this week's program. We're going to be looking at security to make sure that you know A, what's happening on your property, and B, where all your equipment is. And we're also going to be getting the best out of your weeping wall. But in just a moment, it's horticulture. Jim, an interesting season. We do have a spring now.
We have a wonderful spring actually, Rob, after having a rather cold winter, and even the evenings now are still cold. We had a frost this past week, but what it's done, it's even up the buds of all the fruit crops, and even vegetables are in even maturation as they go through their growth stages. So it's pretty pleasing, and what the reflection of that will be two things. One, the flowering of any of the fruit crops could come along pretty quickly, so growers have to be pretty diligent in making sure they're checking their growth stages, because there are various things they may have to do through those growth stages, especially into full bloom. And going through that pre-bloom period is very important, but nice and even. And what happens is that what transpires, if everybody looks after ourselves and the bees work well and all those sort of things, we'll find that the fruit and the harvest time will also be even and come off quite evenly as it has done through the flowering period. So it has quite a reflection of what happens now in this next 3 weeks, what actually happens in January, February, March, whenever the crop is being harvested.
It's happened very quick. All of a sudden we went from winter to spring.
Yes, and that's just a straight reflection of very cold temperatures through the winter, and then all of a sudden the soil temperatures starting to move up a little bit, but the daily temperatures are around the 15, 18 degrees, and poof, away things go. Once they start to move, they won't stop in a season like this. So it's really pretty good start, actually.
Are you nervous about frosts?
Yes, always nervous about frost.
That was a very quick answer.
Yeah, well, I mean, this year, especially with El Nino, they do bring spring frosts. What happens, you've got your northerly conditions, things shut down about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, sky's clear, and a cool breeze from the south may come in, and then it drops off, and then you've got a frost. And that can happen any night, any time for the next sort of 6 weeks. So the potential for spring frost is rather high.
Now, you mentioned bees. Insecticides and bees don't mix.
Certainly don't. And the growers must have a look to see what's going on, where the hives are. Most growers now know where hives are kept. The beekeepers keep an eye on that too, obviously. But read the label, see which is toxic to the bees. Get them on in the evening, even prior to flowering. Get all the insecticides on you need to get on, if you need to get them on at all. Have a reason to apply insecticide. If you haven't got a reason, don't apply it, and certainly don't apply them through the period of flowering. So it's quite simple principles.
Now, Californian thistles are rearing their ugly little heads.
They certainly are. The soil temperatures are warming up. The actual ground is cracking a bit. Although we had some recent rains throughout New Zealand in the last sort of 10 days, and some good rain actually, the cracks are appearing and the thistles are romping out. And you've got to wait, you've got to be a little bit patient. They look a bit ugly, but you've got to be a little bit patient. They come up, they're quite erect, and then the outside leaves go down and they flatten on the ground. And this is the time, and not every thistle is going to do the same thing at the same time, but if you get the majority of your thistles in blocks of Californian thistles, spray them when those outside first exposed leaves are flat on the ground, and you'll get a really pretty good result.
Because apparently if you mow them, they end up running out of steam as well, don't they?
They tend to, and I mean, stock obviously helps that too. We don't have stock around horticulture this time of the year. But yeah, mowing can, but it's those roots, those rhizomes that go along and undercrops and in root systems of trees and bushes and vines and whatever. That's what we're really after with these herbicides. So the more flat area we've got to put the glyphosates, come an adjuvant on there, the better it is.
Brilliant. Now, fungicides.
Fungicides, now this is a critical time. We're leading into flower. I mean, stone fruit's in bloom. And in fact, I think Alexandra had their Blossom Festival this last weekend. So they are well underway, and they have got several fungicides they need to put on through the bloom to stop brown rot. And many fructicola.
That starts now?
It starts right now. So they'll be spraying those right now. All the cherries, the apricots and the peaches will certainly be out. Nectarines will be only a few days away. So they're underway with those. But the apple guys are in the early pre-flower stage. So are the berry fruit guys. So with those guys, they put on some good fungicides now, good cover before full bloom, and you don't have to go back at bloom time to actually spray them off. The diseases don't come through bloom time. They're there, but they aren't a problem. So we can get a good cover on prior to bloom, and crops like kiwi fruit, apples, berry fruit and those pears and all those sort of crops, and then cover off some fungicides later on in the latter part of bloom when the fruit's starting to set. But in stone fruit, you've got to actually have some fungicides on during bloom for Monia fructicoli, which is brown rot, and it can be quite devastating.
It's amazing that you have to play so far ahead.
Yes, oh, absolutely, yes. So those guys, I mean, they've had white tip and pink, what we call pink, which is the next growth stage, and then all of a sudden, bang, you got a flower. And the bees are flat out. Now the bees won't be hurt by these fungicides, and growers obviously know that. But do check on what adjuvants you may be using. There are some adjuvants out there that irritate bees, and you don't want to irritate them at all because they don't do their work.
Nothing worse than a grumpy bee.
Nothing worse than a grumpy bee. So and because the temperatures are reasonably warm during the day, we haven't seen so many bumblebees this year. The old bumblebees are the ones that come out in real cold weather. The honeybees, they're a bit softer. And they like temperatures of 12 degrees plus, and they'll get out there and work like blazes. And at the moment, they are doing that during the day, which is really good.
Residues, is that a problem still?
Major, yeah, and becoming more so. A lot of the markets that we're heading to with our New Zealand produce, fruit and vegetables now, are in Asia and America, not so much in Europe, but still going to Europe, of course. And these newer emerging markets coming out of Asia are being quite pedantic about where MRLs or the maximum residue level should be on pesticides on fruit coming in or on concentrate that has been obviously made with fruit somewhere, and that comes up. That is also under the same scrutiny. So what we're really saying, the grower and the exporters must be really connected, and in general that is the case. So they've got to be talking to each other. They've got to make sure they fully understand their responsibilities in terms of the growers, responsibilities in terms of what they can and cannot apply at this time of the year. And if all is equal, and there are specific spray programs for specific crops, if they follow those, read the labels, talk to their advisors, talk to their exporters, they'll get through without any problems at all.
There must be some sort of written plan or something that follows. There must be some accountability on
paper.
Yeah,
well, there is, but there are a lot of MRLs that aren't listed on small, what we call small crops or minor crops, for minor crops. So fungicides aren't registered necessarily for that particular crop, but they've got industry approval to use those fungicides. So all of a sudden you've got to look in deeper into the research and see, right, what are our real potentials of having a blowout with an MRL in the middle of career or something like that when you don't really want it, when the season's upon you. So, but look, there's good checkpoints. The MPI are very helpful. The ACVM guys are very helpful. And in general, the chemical suppliers are also right on there. They don't want their materials to be misused. So there's a lot of things that need to be checked. It's not a matter of, like the old days, of pulling out the chemical, throwing it in the tank and going out and spraying it. So, well, I've done that, because that's what I did last year, or the year before, 20 years before. It's all about, firstly, no matter what it is, whether it's an insecticide or a fungicide or a miticide, if there's no reason to apply it, you don't apply it. We want to keep our fruit and vegetables as clean as we possibly can.
But that's economics as well. I mean, you don't want to be wasting money on a spray that you don't need.
Yeah, well, it's funny that every grower will ask a supplier, well, I want it the cheapest, I want to save money.
And the one with the barbecue that's thrown in.
Yeah. That's the one. But interestingly enough, they also want the security to know that they've covered off that particular disease or pest. And that's more important to them actually than the cost of the drum. So if you get all of the ducks in order, we should have a pretty clean green sort of program.
Let's hope everybody plays with it, Jim. Thank you very much indeed. In just a moment, we find out how you can get the best out of your weeping wall. Tony, effluent disposal is obviously a huge issue, but weeping walls are one of the tools you can use.
Yeah, it's becoming more and more popular. The weeping wall is a very cheap, placid separation system. So we have no expensive mechanical components that take a severe dislike to the stones and bits and pieces that can be in the effluent. So with the weeping wall, we just rely on the fibre that's contained in the effluent to do the filtering and give us a green water, which is very easy to manage, leaving the solids behind in the drying bed being retained by the weeping wall.
So how does it work? What's the principle of a weeping wall?
The principle of the wall, in our case, we have a sample with a flat surface that the solids can come up against, and a beveled surface at the back, which creates velocity, which keeps itself cleaned and things. So there's quite an interesting calculation to be made based on the number of cows and the length of time it takes to milk them. So the length of time they're on the yard, combined with the amount of liquid that you use to wash it down, to size the drying bed, and then you have the installation of the drying bed with the weeping wall on the end to separate the solids from the liquid and give us a nice, easy liquid to deal with.
Now that does sound like a fairly complicated sort of a formula.
It's actually relatively simple. Really, number of cows, amount of time. Generally speaking, and the average in New Zealand, and I've yet to really come across a situation where it's much different. About 80 cubic metres of holding capacity per 100 cows is pretty much standard.
That's for one of your walls?
Well, no, that's for the drying bed. And then you make the drying bed long and skinny. The longer the better, the greater amount of time you've got from the inflow point to the exit point where the wall is, the better. And generally we talk about one panel per 100 cows is quite sufficient.
Now obviously you clean the solids out once a year?
Generally you try and make it for management purposes about once a year at a time, and that allows you the ability to empty it at a time of year where it's very easy to get on the paddocks. Generally dry time of the year in the autumn, you get rid of the solids, and the beauty is they're nice and dry. You can handle them with bulk handling gear, either front end loaders or excavators, and put it in a trailer device and get it to the furthest part of the farm, normally somewhere where you don't normally get effluent, so you can utilise it on work paddocks or like I say, the further away paddocks. Or
obviously area is important, which is a bit complicated because in the North Island it's quite hilly where dairy farms are.
Not as such. No, it doesn't actually extrapolate out as such because time is a factor. A lot of people have fallen into that trap, and if you halve the size of the bed, you do not get 6 months worth of holding capacity. You get about 6 weeks because there's just insufficient time for that volume of effluent to separate, like between milkings, and so you tend to get energy left in it, which carries the solids up to the weeping wall and they block off.
So the flow should be slow without any sort of kinetic energy?
Yes, it is a placid separation system or passive separation system, and energy or flow is a real problem. So where you've got elevated site for your cow shed compared with your drying bed, you've generally got to put in a baffle or something to take that energy out on the inflow point.
Now, rainfall, is that important?
Not really. Weeping walls actually like liquid. I would never advise someone to divert the rainfall away. I mean, the more liquid that goes through the drying bed, the better the flow paths are kept open, and the more efficiently the weeping wall actually works.
And anybody can go to your website if they want to get some more information?
Yeah, I mean, we've certainly got a little bit of information available. Dairy NZ have certainly done a huge amount of work on this. I mean, it's an interesting product, really, in that weeping wool's been used quite widely for quite a long period of time, and they've been the default system in England for about 30 years. But they were having trouble with variable gaps and them blocking up for reasons other than flow and design. And Dairy NZ came to us and asked us if we had a plastic profile that might be suitable to use rather than using timber battens. We investigated, we didn't have anything, so we made one. And it's proved to be very, very efficient. The plastic has a slightly better flow characteristic than timber or concrete or steel, and they tend to be sort of almost self-cleaning in the respect that the beds fill up with the inflow of wash down, and then they drain down over a sort of an 8-hour period, just retaining the solids. And then in that process, the outside of the wall dries, any build-up tends to sort of curl up and fall off, and so they're virtually self-cleaning if designed properly, and we just get much more even and efficient drying bed situation with the plastic weeping wool. So it's been quite a good success story.
There are those who would say that the crust should be strong enough for you to walk across, but I'm not going to test it. After the break, we're going to be talking security and making sure that you know where your assets are.
You know that saying, content is king? Well, in today's mixed media world, it's true. You need video, audio, photos and more for social media, for marketing, for communications, sales and for advertising. And you need this at a price that works with your budgets. Well, that's what we do. At Tandem, we partner with you to create the content that you can use to shout to the world or video link to a few. Connect with us and we'll help you connect to the world. Be Active begins here in the cold, clean, unpolluted southern oceans of New Zealand. Be Active amino acid biostimulant, natural, 100% pure. Manufactured from healthy deep-sea fish from sustainable New Zealand fisheries. New Zealand's Be Active Amino Acid Biostimulant. The way the world is growing. Working with nature. Good for the plant. Good for the planet. Now that's growing for good.
We're living on a planet facing almost insurmountable challenges. Challenges we have to face sooner rather than later. The world needs our energy. She needs our ideas, our passion. It's up to us to change things, make a positive change to the planet, to feed the world, to protect the future, to live well, to be the generation that will make a change. Join us.
Now, we are very much aware, Dave, that security on farm is very, very important and slack.
Yeah, sometimes I think we have that old mentality that she'll be right, and you know we're off the main grid or the highway. So.
Yeah, we're on a shingle road, for God's sake. No one's going to come and find us.
Yeah, right. That's right. Yeah, unfortunately, that's not the case in this day and age. We're seeing an increase in the number of thefts on farm. Not just on farm, civil construction. We've got a lot of diggers and excavators and trucks and sort of things around Canterbury at the moment, around New Zealand, and they're all susceptible to those rat bags out there that want to take advantage of a piece of gear that's not being supervised or it's not locked up.
I mean, there's a business, isn't it? You steal and then you sell. Either that or you sell and then you steal.
Yeah, that's right. It's look, it is a business, and I've heard some of these things are going in containers and being shipped offshore. So yeah, it's a scary proposition for all businesses that have gear lying around in paddocks or on building sites or excavation sites. The important thing is to know where it is, And
But the neat thing is, TL Parkers, and here's your advertisement, you've got a solution.
we do. We've got a number of solutions. We talked in the past about radios with GPS on them, and that's a great way of tracking your personnel on the farm and gear. But the simplest solution really for farmers who are worried about quad bikes and trailers and trucks and horse floats and things like that is to bolt a simple GPS device to that vehicle.
Yep.
And if you're away from that vehicle, you might be milking, you might be mustering, you might be in town, you might be up the Marlborough Sound sitting on the beach having
Or
a
in
beer.
London watching the rugby.
Watching the rugby. Exactly. Well,
And that's it there.
that's correct. This is the Spot Trace. It's an asset tracker.
If I put that there, you can see a bit of a size of it, because that's an SBS pen.
There you go. It is a small device. So it's a device you screw onto the outside of the vehicle or the quad bike, whatever the case may be. It sits there quite happily through rain, hail and snow. And in the event that someone moves that implement or that vehicle, the device will activates itself and it sends you on your cell phone a text saying, "I'm moving." And you can track that vehicle or that trailer or that horse float and on your phone or on your iPad or on your PC at home.
So basically, that means that if you're sitting watching on the land on telly,
Yes.
and suddenly you see a quad bike's moving, bang, you ring the police.
Correct.
But it tracks it.
Yes, it does, and it sends you it holds that information, so you can fundamentally you can talk to the police and say, look, I can see it moving down State Highway 1 towards Hines. It's and now it's just veered off down this road, and you can keep in contact with that vehicle until such time as the device is disarmed or whatever. You know, if they.
It's a no-brainer.
Look, honestly, it is, and for the price and for the cost, it really is the cheapest option for farmers to make sure that their gear is safe. Well,
So
at least.
What are they worth?
So we're sub $300 for the device itself, and a yearly fee for what they call the basic plan, which allows you to poll sort of 10-minute, 20-minute sort of cycles. You're looking at around $119 US a year for that device. You can go to what they call an extreme service, which will allow you to poll for 2 minutes. So you've got a 2-minute location, and that's for an extra $99 US a year. So it's a very, very cheap, a cost-effective way of.
The insurance companies must love you.
They do, and really it's one of those devices that's the simplest thing to put on. The batteries last for, while it's sitting around doing nothing, the batteries should last around 2.5 months. It'll tell you when the battery's going to fail. It'll send you a little message saying, David, I'm starting to feel a bit tired, put some new batteries in, or you can hardwire it straight into the vehicle. So it's always, so once that vehicle's either turned on, you've got the hardwiring as well as the battery backup.
Now, the thing that most people are thinking right now is, yeah, but during the day, your four-wheeler's going all over the place.
Yeah, that's right.
Is that where you get grumpy with it, with a text every 20 minutes to say, I'm on the move again?
Well, you can go into the via your phone, your smartphone, or the PC or iPad. You can adjust the settings on that. It's got a fantastic application on there for you. It's very easy to use. But the other side of that, you know, from a farm health and safety point of view, it's kind of nice to know that the guy that you just sent up the back of the farm to fix the fence or check some stock or whatever, you can see where that person is, and if the unlikely event there was an emergency or something happened or you didn't know what was happening, you can at least pick up your phone and go, gosh, he's way up there in that gully, and you could go and look for him and find him asleep under a tree.
Yeah, I was actually going to say that. You know, you sort of drive up there yourself and say, excuse me, I don't pay you to sleep under this tree.
Exactly. I've done that myself a couple of times. Yeah. But no, look, I mean, you know, really, you know, we have a terrible, some terrible situations in New Zealand with farm accidents, and we don't want to talk about it, but it's a reality. And this is just another peace of mind tool for you. So you can use it for that, as well as the fact that if at night time, you know, someone comes in and steals your bike or your whatever.
I think that's the main one, isn't it? It's seriously the fact that people do come in, they do steal stuff. farmers are notorious for not locking garages and sheds. And not a lot of the sheds are open anyway.
Correct. And look, it's just the way the business runs. It's unfortunate there's these rat bags that will take advantage of farmers, and you can't be manning your equipment 24/7. This will do it for you at a very good price, and you've got that peace of mind. It's fully IP68 rated, so it's waterproof, it's dustproof, it's military specs, so it can handle the day-to-day stuff. It's a peace of mind kit, really.
And availability? Because it's not, you're based in Canterbury, but
yeah, we can
anyone in the country is going to want to do it.
We can ship anywhere around New Zealand, and the good news is it's the global network that utilises. It's 96% coverage globally. Not that you'll be taking your quad bike to Australia, but
well, you said they're shipping them out in containers.
That's correct. That's what they are doing.
Thank you very much indeed,
You're
because
welcome.
that really is a major problem. We've got more for you on the land in just a moment. Jessica, you're a city girl who's an artist living in the country. How did you start your career?
I don't know really when it formally started. It's hard to say. It's just been a passion for me always, an interest in cloth and sculptural form, and how particularly how fabric moves on the human body. So I kind of came at it a lot of angles. After school, I worked in an art gallery, and we've all got to find our way somehow, I guess. And I was offered a job there at the Beeley Gallery opposite where I used to catch the bus, and I was offered it because I was always in there when I was waiting for the bus. So they recognised a passion there, and from that time, a year of that, and then working in the theatre, court theatre and wardrobe, then I realised, okay, this is me. I want to work in this way with cloth and texture and colour, and so I enrolled at Wellington Polytech for clothing and textile design, and I guess that was that first year of that I knew, yeah, this is just, I'm so at home here, yeah.
Now, you've been overseas.
Yes, I following that and some various jobs in New Zealand, I was encouraged by my boyfriend, who's now my husband at the time, to travel, and I said, okay, I'll reluctantly go for a couple of months, thinking that the world would be like New Zealand, and got to London and just thought, wow. So 2.5 years later, I came home. But yeah, I was very fortunate. I was had some tickets arranged for me to go to the Paris fashion shows, which was gold, and I remembered my mother's words, write a diary, and actually that became necessary to start drawing, because the words weren't coming quick enough at the shows. It was just so much to see and so much gorgeousness. So that was the beginning of the Paris series. So there was no intention really to use that in any way. It was just here I am in Paris looking at the designs of Valentino, Dior, Lacroix. They're just incredible. These guys know what to do with cloth. The lighting was stunning. The models are the best in the world. It was Naomi Campbell, Claudia Schiffer, Hailey Berry, I think, was very young then. It was just absolute professionalism there in front of me. My friend Vicky Spearing, who came with me as an amateur professional photographer, when we arrived, and our seats were right at the back and at the top, and I said to her, Vicky, I just can't see, and she said, Jess, you know what you've got to do, you've got to just go down there beside the photographers and just find yourself a spot. So we did, we nuzzled in there, and I put my paper on the catwalk, and there were the girls right in front of me.
So you learnt to draw. Did you get taught, or did you just teach yourself? How did it all work out?
I started drawing the figure when I was at high school, because I felt what we were learning wasn't giving me what I needed, and I was lucky enough that there were some girls at school with me that were doing life classes at Polytech, and they encouraged me to go when I was 15. It sort of felt okay to go and draw from the nude, male and female, and my mother was very encouraging. My father kept his mouth closed, and I'm sure he felt quite strange about it when I brought the drawings home gleefully and put them out on the dining room table. But he didn't make a fuss, and we did giggle a lot the first day we went and saw a fully naked, proud man standing there in front of us. We just quite didn't know what to do with ourselves.
You're doing your drawing as a business. How do you integrate that with working and being on a high country farm?
It works actually very well because Stu manages the property for an American family, and the accounting and all of that side is done between Stu and accountants. So for a lot of my friends who live on farms, that job and responsibility falls on them, and GST every month. So whilst it's not our own home and we won't always be here, which is a pity because we really love the place, it also allows me to really work hard at networking with people that are doing the kind of things that I'd like to support as well.
Now you do commissions for people who, for example, have got a wedding dress they want to capture.
I do. I love to go to the fitting room and draw at that moment, and it's very emotional because it's often the first time the bride-to-be is putting on the most amazing dress she'll ever wear for an incredible moment, and her mother's sometimes there or a dearest friend, so it's a real privilege to be there and draw that very beautiful garment.
Now Jess, you're probably going to go humble on me, but you do make your drawings come to life.
Thank you.
I knew you were going to go humble.
Yeah, I just draw what I see, and I guess I was lucky. I was taught in those life classes by a very tough and talented man, Paul Vandenberg, and he taught me to draw what I see. Don't make it up. So whatever the strongest lines are, where the light is, the texture, I draw in quite a meditative state, I guess. I'm just tuned into what is the real essence of this garment, and yeah.
There's one particular sketch that you've done, and you've called it Frothy, and you can actually see the movement.
Thank you. I try to do that, and I'm helped out enormously by light. If we have no light, it's darkness. So when light hits any form, whatever the texture and nature is of that form, the light will reveal where the shadows are and how it behaves. So yeah, I have a lot of natural cues that I use.
Jess, you can do commissions for people who want to have something personal, but you also sell other drawings and sketches. So where do we find those?
The Paris collection I have on my website, which is www.jessicagunstudio.co.nz, and they are all displayed under the Paris series. There's a limited edition of those which is limited to 100, and there's 20 in that series, 20 drawings that I've selected from about 35 drawings that I made in Paris. And some of those are coming close to the end of that run. I don't actually have a system where people can buy directly because PayPal and different things, I haven't set that up, but people can email me on the contacts page, and I'm always delighted to hear from people and postage.
You can make it happen, Jess.
I can just make it happen. I've got some wonderful corrugated boxes that I have made and for me, and postage all around the world is never a problem.
Jess, isn't it wonderful? Here you are in the middle of absolutely nowhere, and you've got a website, and you can communicate and sell your works all around the world.
Yeah, it is. An email, and yeah, I love my iPhone and my iMacBook. It just makes it really efficient, and yeah, I don't feel isolated at all. It's great.
Where to from here for Jessica Gunn, the artist?
Well, our youngest son left home last year, earlier this year, And so it's really exciting times for them. We're going to visit Ferg at the end of the week in Northern Territory. And our daughter Lucy's not far away in Christchurch, so we see her from time to time, which is neat. So I'm not sure where it will go, Rob, but...
So you're not going to stop drawing?
I'm going to stop drawing. I love it. I hope Drawing the Bride grows. I want to... I've started with calling it Drawing the Bride because when I left art school 4 years ago, I just couldn't paint. I just was overcooked. So I thought I'd go back to basics. So the drawing's been really good. It's like my star jumps, and it's usually only an hour at the fitting room. By the time the dressmaker checks the shape, the form, does the hem, I've got an hour to draw, which is great. That's good, hard sprinting. But I would love to do some longer painted works for any brides that want to put their dress back on after their wedding and work with some oil and colour. And yeah, my particular favourite artist that I'm looking at a lot at the moment is a guy called John Singer Sargent, who just loved what I love, the figure and beautiful cut cloth and fabrics, dresses. He's a real master. So yeah, I'd like to think I'll be doing a bit of John Singer Sargent.
We're in early spring now, as you are with your career, and you're about to hit a magnificent summer.
I hope so. I'm not sure if that'll all start happening this summer, but yeah, I'm ready for it.
You know that saying, content is king? Well, in today's mixed media world, it's true. You need video, audio, photos and more for social media, for marketing, for communications, sales and for advertising. And you need this at a price that works with your budgets. Well, that's what we do. At Tandem, we partner with you to create the content that you can use to shout to the world or video link to a few. Connect with us and we'll help you connect to the world. Be Active begins here in the cold, clean, unpolluted southern oceans of New Zealand. Be Active amino acid biostimulant, natural, 100% pure, manufactured from healthy deep sea fish from sustainable New Zealand fisheries. New Zealand's Be Active amino acid biostimulant, the way the world is growing. Working with nature, good for the plant, good for the planet. Now that's growing for good.
We're living on a planet facing almost insurmountable challenges. Challenges we have to face sooner rather than later. The world needs our energy. She needs our ideas, our passion. It's up to us to change things, make a positive change to the planet, to feed the world, to protect the future, to live well, to be the generation that will make a change. Join us.
Michael, tying in tourism with farming?
Yeah, a lot of people don't see the fit, but if you look back to the history of tourism in New Zealand, our tourism entrepreneurs are our farmers. You know, New Zealand is, this 100% pure New Zealand campaign that we have. So we are blue skies, mountains, rivers, pastures, all of those things that are absolutely tied into the farming community, those rural communities. It's tourism, and so tourism is one of those ubiquitous industries which is part of farming. It's part of urban towns as well, but it is a natural fit because those those landscapes that farmers farm and foster are those same landscapes that tourists just love. The sheep, the beef, wide open spaces, trees, all those sorts of open things are absolutely quintessential New Zealand, and it's tied up to the rural sector, and the rural sector does that very, very well.
So it's more than just a B&B on the side of the road.
Absolutely, and it's more than just a pit stop on the way to a place, a cafe, and those sorts of things. But it is, it's the way that tourism links into the rural community is trying to get real value and add value to those communities. So it's not just attractions and it's not just things to do, but it's the festivals that are generated from the need to have visitors come. We're doing a project in Geraldine at the moment, And Geraldine's an interesting town because it's one of those places which is to somewhere else. It's on the main road down to Twizel and Queenstown. But it's also a place to stop. And so it's just close enough to the major population base of Christchurch where they are starting to generate events, not just for local people, but to get outsiders coming in. So it adds a whole lot of different things to communities. It's food tourism, gastronomy. Barker's in Geraldine is about farm to plate. So it's all those value add. It's so much more than just B&B. It's so much more than just the service industry, which I think is an interesting kind of point. What is tourism's value to a township? Its value is that it can create diversity of economy. It can create something for people to come and see. It adds value to lifestyles and those kinds of things. So it's a really good complementary industry to primary production.
But is it something that a sheep farmer can make a shilling out of?
Well, this is one of the challenges, isn't it? It's and again, the value of tourism. Tourism is, I think, traditionally seen as being a low value industry, and certainly this is some of our research that we're looking at the moment is how can we get the best type of tourism for us. So we want tourism to be more than just, as I said before, a cafe stop. We're on possibly a minimum wage, but in terms of a farming situation, how can a sheep farmer add value to his or her production through tourism? Well, it's about using the resource better. So for example, in central Otago, a lot of the sheep farms in high country stations are using tourism as a means to sort of supplement income. So, there are wool shed weddings, for example. There are mountain bike events and multi-sport events on farms. So it's one of those things where it can kind of add a little bit of income to an existing income stream. So I think that's where the value is for those farms. But and it's also about creating jobs for the wider community. I mean, Hamner Springs is a very good example, or the Huronui district, of a whole lot of additional jobs being created for the farming community, not necessarily on the farm, but certainly through hotels and through attractions, on-farm attractions, and also even the thermal pools. So all of those things that help to add to a community located in a rural place, maybe not necessarily the farm itself, but there are many different ways that tourism can add value to those sorts of places.
I guess Methven's got it right.
Methven's done a very good job of it. And again, see, these rural places, these places that I'm interested in, are places bang smack in the middle of scenic beauty. Now, Methven is close to Christchurch, close to the southern airport hub, so all these international visitors come in. Ski field, 1.5 to 2 hours out of Christchurch, so Methven is perfectly placed. So it's got the winter season where they can just absolutely, it's ski town central for the Canterbury region, and that supplements all the existing farming around there. So it's tourism is not taking resource away from those farming endeavours. It's kind of adding something else which can contribute to a much broader diversified economy.
And of course there's the tie-up with farmers producing produce for the local hotels and motels and restaurants.
Oh look, absolutely. And so again I go back to the Methven example that you used, or even Geraldine and the Huronui. So you have these tourism hubs which need to be supplied. Now the best way to get value from tourism is to have as much of the things that tourists need supplied by local producers. So locally raised beef and sheep for restaurants, locally produced produce, in terms of vegetables and fruits and those sorts of things, to absolutely keep the supply chain tight, because as a discipline, tourism has a supply chain just like the agriculture sector has a supply chain. So all of those things that tourists need must be derived from somewhere. So if a place like Geraldine can produce as much food to look after the tourists as possible, and also any of the other sorts of services and amenities that they require, then that helps to kind of create this economic benefit. And also in the case of Geraldine, it is Barker's jam. They are becoming known as a gastronomic location. So this gastronomy tourism helps to create a different type of demand. Tourists go from Christchurch to Geraldine just for the jam and the chocolatiers and the freshly derived produce. It really is, and it's adding value. So it cuts out the supply chain to get to supermarkets. In fact, farmers can just supply direct to restaurants, and that's the value of being in those rural locations.
Farmers markets, they become something that everybody wants to buy fresh and local.
Oh look, this is really I guess the fashionable phrase at the moment. Farmers markets, buy locally made, locally produced, and there is this reassurance that consumers have, and certainly tourists have this as well. We go to places because we want to experience a place, not just to see the scenery, but to actually have some sort of experience of a place. And so, this idea of buying a locally produced goods gives tourists, from the tourist point of view, a much closer connection with the place. And it also helps to create the sense of identity and sense of destination branding. And Geraldine have just recently developed a tourism strategy. Now, one of the strategies within that is to have a much stronger destination brand, which revolves around being a food tourism hub, Barkers, and also then linking that into some sort of heritage base as well. So it helps to create a really strong sense of place and real benefits that extend not just to being behind a cafe counter and serving, but producer, employer, and help to create some sort of stronger destination brand, and that's really important.
And I suppose any small country town can do it.
Well, look, I think so. There is different destinations, different areas have different levels of suitability for tourism. As long as there are some key kind of characteristics that are met, there is an attraction. So there is usually some scenery, some activity that is based around scenery. There is a service town, so there is some sort of town there as well. So as long as a destination has, it has access, has high scenic amenity, and has things that people are interested in doing, and it's supported by rural community, then absolutely any destination community can do it. But the level of success of that might vary, and again, that is, tourism is often seen as a supplementary business, and it might not be the case that all destinations strike it rich with just being that type of tourism. But again, if there are rural communities out there that have access to fresh produce and great growing conditions, you think of Waimate. So Havoc Pork has done very, very well, and Waimate has done very well out of Havoc Pork. It is seen as being the producer of free range meat produce, and so it's got a bit of a name for itself like that. So all of these sorts of places, if you have some fresh produce, some access to primary resources, it goes a long way to help to secure some sort of visitation.
Steve, braided rivers, I didn't realise that we take them for granted, but we're actually pretty special.
They are, Rob. They're one of the a very rare ecological system globally. And New Zealand's the international hotspot for braided rivers, and of course Canterbury, with its mighty rivers like the Waitaki and the Rangitata and the Rakaia and the Huranui and all of those, Waimakariri right on our doorstep, represent an amazing collection of this type of environment, which is the envy of the world really, and we have some very special animals in it.
Because seriously, I mean, I've just done a mental trip around the world, and you're right, not many people have braided rivers.
Yeah, it's a comparatively rare environment, and we have lots of it.
We do indeed. Now, you're wanting to make an awareness situation because of birds.
That's right. The braided rivers are a highly dynamic environment, so the animals that live there, which are principally, we're talking about birds today, they've adapted to that highly dynamic environment, so they can cope with floods and the odd fresh, and nearly all of them breed on the clean braided river channel stones, so on the clean riverbed stones. They can't cope with weeds. So, and they're all endangered, some of them critically so. The black-billed gull is the most endangered gull in the world. It's critically endangered. That's the next stage to extinct. So
and that's, we just look at those black-backed gulls.
Black-billed gulls.
Yeah, but these are the things that we just think that it's a seagull.
That's right. We think it's a seagull, and it looks very similar to the red-billed gull, which is the one that comes and steals your lunch from your seaside picnic.
Steve, that's the black-billed gull there.
Yes, that's the most endangered gull in the world. There's still good numbers of them, but their population has crashed by 80% in the last 30 years. So you do the math, in another 30 years, there's not going to be any. They are specialist braided river breeders, so their headquarters are the braided rivers of the South Island of New Zealand, and that's the only place in the world that they breed, and they're only found in New Zealand, so they're our endemic gull.
So how many different birds are we talking about as far as species are concerned?
As far as braided river specialists, we're talking about 5 key species that are entirely dependent on braided rivers. That's the wrybill, the black-billed gull, the black-fronted tern, the black stilt, and then there are a number of others that are pretty dependent on braided rivers, though they may breed elsewhere as well, such as the banded dotterel or the South Island pied oystercatcher, and the pied stilt. So collectively, though, those braided rivers, especially in Canterbury, are one of the last remaining large tracts of natural landscape in the Canterbury Plains landscape, because we've converted everything else to cities, towns and farmland. So those braided rivers are really the only natural landscape channels between the bush and the hill and the wetlands of the coast that birds and animals can travel up and down. So they're incredibly important.
Now, I guess you're really asking anybody with a motorbike or a ute or whatever who wants to hoon, please just take it, just don't go there for 6 or 8 weeks.
Yeah, no, it's a bit more than 6 or 8 weeks. What we're talking about is stay out of the clean river channels. So it's fine where there's lots of scrub or, you know, the weeds that we've introduced like lupin and things like that, or along the stop banks. But please, from now until the end of February, stay out of the clean river. Yeah, that's how long it takes the birds to lay, hatch, and then fledge their birds. Because remember, they're all sitting, these are all chicks that are going to be flightless for a few months, sitting on the ground, hidden among the stones.
And you can't see the little things.
You can't see them. People say to me, oh, look, I'll see the nests. No, you won't. Wrybills, for example, are exactly the same colour as the grey racky stones of our riverbeds. They're only a little bit bigger than a sparrow, and they lay their eggs on the stones with no nest. There's no nest structure to see.
Look at that on the screen there now.
Yeah,
I mean, how are you supposed to see that when you're doing 50 k's on a motorbike?
Exactly right. So we're saying that there's plenty of other places that four-wheel drivers can go. If they can stay out of the clean shingle on the riverbed, they'll be doing these incredibly rare and highly endangered birds of flavour. And they're, the wrybill especially, that's a male sitting on his nest. Now you imagine that's a little bit bigger than sparrow but smaller than a starling. You're not going to see him, as you say, hooning up the river at great speed. I nearly stood on that bird before he fluttered off his nest, and I realised he was there. So that's walking.
And you were walking slowly.
And I didn't see him, yeah. So I had to back off and let him go back to his eggs. So, and this one is a black-fronted tern. Again, endemic to New Zealand, beautiful bird, only breeds in our braided rivers. So if we don't look after these birds during the season, the chances are that they won't get through. Black-fronted terns on the Rangitata River last year did not fledge a single chick in the study area. And that's mainly due to human disturbance and introduced pets, such as cats, stoats, ferrets and rats.
That's tragic.
It is tragic. You know, it's such a beautiful bird. So on the Ashley Rucker, that's a female banded dotterel, and again you can see how camouflaged her eggs are, and among those stones. They're designed to avoid predation by their natural predators, which is black-backed gulls and harriers and the birds that are natural predators. They're not designed to be hidden from introduced predators like cats and rats that can smell. And of course they've got no defence against us.
no, there's no defence against the tyre.
Yeah, no, they're exactly right, and that's the issue.
Tell me about your organisation and how it came into being.
Okay, so I got involved first with the Ashley Rucker River Care Group, which is a fantastic group that's been going about 13 years that looks particularly after a section of the Ashley. And the good news is that with the trapping and the monitoring and the education they're doing there, the braided river birds on that river are stable in population, and signs are that they actually might be increasing in population on that river. On nearly all of the other braided rivers in the South Island, the populations of these birds are still seriously declining. So the Ashley River Care Group decided that while they were looking after their little bit of river, they needed to do something on a wider scale for all of the braided rivers. So they helped form Braided River Aid, or BRAID. and I'm a member of both groups. So Braid Hat, if you like, is now the umbrella organisation that is lobbying for awareness of the braided river issues. So that's everything from submitting to water extraction permits to lobbying for awareness of what river flows are needed to keep the rivers viable for the birds, and so on. All that lobbying and conservation
Steve,
work.
all power to your elbow, and thank you, because we need those birds and we need to be world leaders, so thank you very much indeed. Now, if you'd like to have another look at Steve's interview, and I'm sure you will, don't forget that we do have our website, ontheland.co.nz. I'm Rob Cope-Williams. You've either been watching or you've just missed On the Land, but I will be back at the same time next week. Until then, bye now.